This chapter focused on perception. The general message is that things are not always the way they are perceived to be at first glance. Skinner explained that in the traditional view, a person responds to the world around him in the sense of acting upon it. Etymologically, the experience to the world is to test and perceive it is to capture it. Skinner believed the opposing view, common to all versions of behaviorism, is the initiating action is taken by the environment rather than by the perceiver. Skinner described the stimulus control of operant behavior. He explained that the environment affects an organism after as well as before it responds. The occasion upon which behavior occurs, the behavior itself, and its consequences are interrelated in the contingencies of reinforcement. A response reinforced upon a given occasion is most likely to occur on a very similar occasion, but because of generalization, it may appear on occasions sharing only some of the same properties. If it is only reinforced when a particular property is present, that property acquires exclusive control. This process is called discrimination. Skinner continued on in the chapter to discuss conditions affecting what is seen. He explained that perception is in a sense purposive or intentional. He stated that a person is not an indifferent spectator soaking the world like a sponge. When a stimulus is weak or vague, it is often clear that other conditions are affecting the probability that a person will see things in a given way. Skinner went on to state that a person sees one thing as something else when the probability of seeing the latter is high, and the control exerted by the former is low. Continuing further in the chapter, Skinner discussed experience versus reality. He explained that behaviorism is said to be at fault in failing to recognize that what is important is how the situation looks to a person or how a person interprets a situation. But in order to investigate how a situation looks to a person or how he interprets it, we must first examine his behavior with respect to it. Skinner explains that aspect is what causes trouble because people see different things when they have been exposed to different contingencies of reinforcement. Additionally, Skinner discussed the copy theory. He stated that the copy theory of perception is most convincing with respect to visual stimuli. However, the trouble with this is that the notion of an inner copy makes no progress in explaining sensory control or the physiology of perception. Later on in the chapter, Skinner references seeing in the absence of the thing seen. He explained that explicit techniques of calling to mind are techniques of strengthening perceptual behavior. He explained that a person is changed by the contingencies of reinforcement under which he behaves. He does not store the contingencies. There is not an iconic representation in his mind. He has simply been changed in a way that stimuli now control particular kinds of perceptual behavior. Skinner discussed that Freud emphasized the significance of wishes and fears plausibly inferred from dreaming, but went on to explain that dreaming is perceptual behavior and the difference between behavior when asleep and when awake is simply a difference in controlling conditions. The question I have after reading this chapter is that Skinner explains that he has learned the difference between two kinds of seeing. He states, "The thirsty man does not reach for the fancied glass of water, but the dreamer does not know what he is seeing is not really there and responds as fully as a person who is asleep can." What do you think Skinner means by this, or the two kinds of seeing? Prior to this chapter, what was your view of perception? After reading the chapter, did it change?